He died a free man, rich, famous, a national hero, the second most popular man in Holland, behind only the Queen, the man who humiliated the Nazis, the man who saved Dutch art, the man everyone needed him to be. There was just one problem. In Hitler's personal library, among the ashes of Berlin, they found his handwriting. To my beloved Führer. In gratitude, same hand, same ink, proven by forensics. An entire nation chose not to believe it. A graphologist confirmed it in 1946. The report was filed away. It wasn't published until 1979, over 30 years after his death, long after the myth had solidified, long after anyone was paying attention. This is the story of how Han van Meegeren fooled the world twice, once with paint, once with his own legend, and today I'm going to show you exactly how he did it. How a Nazi sympathizer fooled an entire nation twice. The setup: who is this man? His name was Han van Meegeren, and before he became the greatest art forger in history, he was just a failure. Born in Holland in 1889, his father hated him, hated his art. There's a story that defines Hans' childhood. One day, his father found his sketchbooks hidden under the bed, and he didn't just throw them away, he tore them to pieces, right in front of the boy's face. Then he made Han write a sentence 100 times.
I know nothing. I am nothing. I am capable of nothing.
Imagine what that does to a kid's brain. It creates a hole, a dark, empty hole that needs to be filled. So Han spent his entire life trying to prove his father wrong. He went to art school. He studied the old masters from the 1600s, Rembrandt, Vermeer. He could paint like them. He breathed like them. But there was a problem. It was the 1920s. The world was changing. Art was becoming modern, weird, abstract. Nobody wanted realistic paintings anymore. In 1922, Han held his first big exhibition. This was his moment. Years of work on the walls. He invited the most important critics in Holland, and he waited. The reviews came out the next day. They destroyed him, called his work a tired copy of the Renaissance. One critic said his paintings had no soul. That night, Han sat alone in his studio. He looked at his paintings, years of work, and something inside him broke. He realized he would never win by playing their game, so he decided to change the game. He wrote something in his diary that night.
Revenge keeps its color. He who waits wins.
He packed his bags, left Holland, and moved to a villa in the south of France. Everyone thought he was retiring. They were wrong. He was building a weapon. But before I show you how he built that weapon, you need to understand something about the art world, because what Han figured out, it's the key to the entire scam. The system, how art really works. Here's the truth about expensive art. A painting is worth $10 million if an expert says it's real, and it's worth $0 if that same expert says it's fake. The difference isn't in the painting itself. The difference is in the story, in the signature, in what people believe. The art world runs on one thing: trust. If the right expert says, this is a Vermeer, everyone believes it. Museums buy it, collectors fight over it. It becomes priceless. But if that expert is wrong, if he gets fooled, the entire system collapses. Han understood this. He realized the experts weren't gods. They were just men with big egos. And if you know what a man wants to see, you can make him see it. So Han chose his target very carefully. Abraham Bredius, 83 years old, the world's top expert on Johannes Vermeer, and Han was about to make this old man cry. But to fool the world's greatest expert, Han needed to solve an impossible problem. A problem that had stumped every art forger in history. Let me show you. The weapon. The chemistry of deception. Here's the problem with faking an old painting. Oil paint takes 50 years to fully dry and harden. It's a chemical process. The paint slowly oxidizes, hardens like stone. So if an expert suspects your painting is fake, they do a simple test. They take a cotton swab, dip it in alcohol, and rub it on the painting. If the paint is new, it dissolves. The color comes off. You go to jail. If the paint is old, nothing happens. Hard as rock. You get rich. This is the problem that stops every forger. You can't fake time. But Han was about to hack chemistry itself. He moved to that villa in France, locked the doors, covered the windows. For 4 years, he experimented, trying to make paint that was applied yesterday behave like it was applied 300 years ago. He failed, over and over, smashing bottles, mixing poisons, going crazy. Until one day, he found the answer, not in an art book, in an industrial chemistry book, Bakelite. It's a type of early plastic invented in 1907. They used it to make telephones, electrical parts, stuff like that. It's hard, heat-resistant, almost indestructible. And Han had a crazy idea. What if he mixed his paint with liquid plastic? He bought the raw chemicals, phenol and formaldehyde, the ingredients of Bakelite. He ground up expensive pigments by hand. Blue lapis lazuli stone, red cinnabar, yellow ochre, the exact same pigments Vermeer used in the 1600s. Then he mixed those pigments with the liquid plastic. The mixture stayed liquid for a while, long enough to paint with. But here's the genius part. If you heat it, the plastic hardens instantly, like setting concrete. He built an oven in his studio, just a metal box with a heating element and a thermometer. He would paint his fake masterpiece, then slide it into the oven, heat it to exactly 105 degrees Celsius, and bake it for 2 hours. When it came out, the paint was hard as stone. You could pour acid on it, rub it with alcohol. Nothing would happen. He had just invented a way to fake 300 years of aging in 2 hours. But there was still one problem. When the painting came out of the oven, it looked too perfect, too smooth, too new. A real painting from the 1600s has thousands of tiny cracks all over it. They're called craquelure. These cracks happen naturally as the paint expands and contracts over centuries. Experts look for these cracks to prove a painting is real. Han's plastic painting? Smooth as glass. A dead giveaway. So he did something so simple, it's almost funny. While the painting was still warm from the oven, he took the canvas and rolled it tightly around a wooden cylinder. The hardened plastic shattered. Thousands of tiny cracks appeared across the entire surface. Perfect. But he wasn't done yet. He took regular black India ink and he rubbed it into those cracks, like rubbing dirt into scratches on your phone screen. The ink seeped into the tiny cracks. He wiped off the excess. And what was left? Cracks that looked dirty, like 300 years of dust and candle smoke had settled into them. To the naked eye, beautiful, old, perfect. Under a microscope, ancient cracks filled with ancient dirt. To a chemical test, hard as stone, impossible to dissolve. But Han still needed one more thing, the most important thing. An old canvas. You can't paint a Vermeer on modern fabric. The threads are different. X-rays would catch you immediately. So Han went shopping. He bought real paintings from the 1600s. Cheap ones, bad ones, paintings by artists nobody cared about. He didn't want the art. He wanted the corpse. He took those 300-year-old paintings and scraped them down. Erased the original faces, sanded them until only the ghost of the old painting remained. He was murdering history to make room for his lie. Now he had everything. A 300-year-old canvas, paint that couldn't be dissolved, cracks that looked ancient, pigments that matched the 1600s exactly. He painted his masterpiece, a religious scene, Jesus at dinner with two disciples. He called it the Supper at Emmaus. It was time to set the trap. But Han didn't just want to fool anyone. He wanted to fool the one man who had destroyed him years ago. The man who said his paintings had no soul. This wasn't just about money. This was personal. The trap. Fooling the expert. Abraham Bredius, the king of art experts, the man who decided what was real and what was fake. But Han had studied him, read every article Bredius ever wrote, and he found a weakness. Bredius had a fantasy. He believed, without any proof, that Vermeer had painted religious scenes when he was young. Bredius had spent decades searching for these lost paintings. It was his obsession, his white whale, and Han was about to give it to him. In 1937, Han arranged for the painting to be shown to Bredius. Through an intermediary, a recently discovered work, Bredius traveled to Monaco. He stood in front of the painting. This was the moment. If Bredius looked too closely, Han would be caught. If Bredius demanded X-rays, chemical tests, it was over. But Han had bet everything on one thing, Bredius's ego. Bredius stared at the painting for 3 days. He brought his magnifying glass. He studied every brush stroke, every crack, every shadow. And then he noticed something. The signature. It was slightly different from other Vermeers. The letters were too confident, too bold. Bredius stared at it. And then he smiled. Because Bredius didn't see a flaw. He saw proof. He thought,
of course the signature is different. Vermeer was young when he painted this. His signature wasn't refined yet.
He had just convinced himself. Han didn't need to fool him. Bredius fooled himself. The old man went home and wrote an article for the most prestigious art magazine in the world. Listen to what he said.
It is a wonderful moment in the life of a lover of art, when he finds himself suddenly confronted with a hitherto unknown painting by a great master. When I was shown this masterpiece, I had difficulty controlling my emotions.
He didn't just approve it. He called it the masterpiece of Johannes Vermeer. The painting sold immediately to a museum in Rotterdam. The price? 520,000 guilders. In today's money, about $6 million for a piece of baked plastic. Han had done it. He'd gotten his revenge. He'd humiliated the expert who destroyed him. The critics who called his work soulless were now calling this same work divine, and they had no idea he was the one who painted it. At this point, a smart criminal would take the money and disappear forever, but Han got greedy. Because what Han did next, it wasn't just stupid, it was suicidal. He was about to sell a fake painting to the most dangerous man in the world. The fall. Enter the Nazis. 1940. The Nazis invaded Holland. The country went dark. People were starving, eating tulip bulbs to survive. But inside Han's mansion in Amsterdam, it was a non-stop party. Han had become rich, insanely rich. He kept painting fake Vermeers and selling them. He bought mansions, threw parties every night. But to keep up this lifestyle, he needed to keep selling. And he got sloppy. The new paintings he made were, honestly, garbage. The faces were wrong. The proportions were off. They looked nothing like Vermeer. But it didn't matter anymore because the Nazis were in town and the Nazis wanted art. Hermann Göring, Hitler's second-in-command, head of the German Air Force, a man who saw himself as a Renaissance prince. Göring was obsessed with collecting art. He wanted the biggest collection in Europe, and he wanted a Vermeer more than anything. So Han painted him one, Christ with the woman taken in adultery. Look at it. It's ugly. The faces are strange. The colors are muddy. But Göring didn't care about quality. He cared about owning it, about having what nobody else could have. Han offered him the painting, but he didn't ask for money. He asked for a trade. Göring wanted the Vermeer so badly that he traded 137 real paintings for it. Paintings he had stolen from museums across Europe, one piece of baked plastic. For an entire museum's collection, Han van Meegeren had just scammed the most dangerous man in the world. Göring took the painting to his country estate, hung it in the place of honor. He told everyone it was his most prized possession. He worshipped a lie. May 1945, the war ended. The Nazis fell. Allied soldiers went through Göring's stolen art collection, trying to return everything to its rightful owners. And they found the Vermeer, with a receipt, a name on the paper, Han van Meegeren. The police arrested Han immediately, but they weren't congratulating him for tricking Göring. They didn't know it was a trick. They thought he had sold a real Dutch treasure to the enemy. That's treason. The punishment? Death. Han was trapped. The entire country wanted him dead. He had one card left to play, and it was the most insane defense in legal history. The pivot. The confession. They locked Han in a room and interrogated him for 6 weeks.
Where did you get the Vermeer? Who helped you? Name your contacts.
Han said nothing, but inside his head, he was doing the math. He had 2 choices. Choice A, keep quiet, be executed as a traitor. Choice B, tell the truth, admit he's a forger, go to prison instead. Prison is bad, but death is worse. So Han made his decision. He looked at the interrogator and screamed,
You idiots! You think I sold a national treasure to that pig Göring? There is no Vermeer. I painted it myself.
The room went dead quiet. And then the officers laughed. They didn't believe him. Think about the irony. He was trying to confess to a crime, but he was so good at it, nobody believed him. The experts insisted the paintings were real, the best experts in the world. They were basically arguing for Han to be executed. So Han made them an offer. The officers looked at each other. They thought he was bluffing.
Give me a canvas, give me my paints, lock me in a room with guards watching me 24 hours a day, and I will paint you a Vermeer right here, right now.
Fine. Paint.
They locked him in a room at police headquarters. 6 witnesses, 24-hour surveillance. But Han had demands. He told them he couldn't work without his fuel. 200 cigarettes, morphine, a case of gin. They gave it to him, and there, high on morphine and gin, under arrest, facing execution, Han van Meegeren painted his final masterpiece, Jesus teaching in the temple. It took him 2 months. When he finished, the experts ran their tests. They found the Bakelite. They found modern pigments that shouldn't exist in a 1600s painting. The illusion shattered. The great Vermeers were fake, all of them, and the experts who had called them masterpieces, they were fools. When Göring was told in his prison cell that his beloved Vermeer was a fake, witnesses said he looked like his soul left his body. For a man who had lost everything, his power, his country, his freedom, discovering that his prize painting was just baked plastic, that was the final humiliation. Han hadn't just saved his own life. He had trolled the Nazis from beyond the grave. The perfect con, the perfect story. The only question is, who was he really conning? Was it the Nazis, the experts, the art world, or was it us? Because here's the thing, his fakes look obvious to us now. The faces have heavy eyelids. The proportions are strange. They look like paintings from the 1930s, not the 1600s. But in 1937, the greatest expert in the world cried when he saw them. Why? Because the faces in Han's paintings looked like movie stars from the 1930s. That was the beauty standard of the time. That's what people thought was attractive. The experts didn't see the 1600s. They saw their own reflection. Han didn't paint what Vermeer would have painted. He painted what people in 1937 wanted Vermeer to have painted. He hacked their brains, their egos, their desires. And maybe that's the real lesson here. We don't see art, we see what we want to see. We see our own time, our own dreams, our own proof that we were right all along. Han understood that, and he exploited it. He didn't just fool the art world, he revealed the truth about it. The trial. The hero. October 1947, the trial began. But it wasn't really a trial, it was a celebration. Han walked in wearing a sharp blue suit, looking like a movie star. The courtroom was packed. People were cheering. A recent poll had named him the second most popular man in Holland. Why? Because he wasn't a traitor anymore. He was a hero. The little guy who tricked the big bad Nazis, the Dragon Slayer.
Did you do it for the money?
I wanted to prove that the experts were wrong about me. That was all.
The verdict?
Guilty!
Of forgery and fraud. The sentence? 1 year in prison. 1 year. For stealing millions. For rewriting history. For humiliating the entire art establishment. It was a joke. A slap on the wrist. But Han, he had one last trick. December 30th, 1947. 2 weeks before he was supposed to go to prison, Han van Meegeren had a heart attack and died. He never spent a single day in a prison cell for his crimes. He died a free man. He died rich. He died famous. But here's what nobody reported. The trial lasted less than 6 hours. Each witness testified for an average of 7 minutes. The prosecution made one decision before it even started. Do not ask about the politics. Do not mention the Nazis. Do not touch the dedication. Why? Because the Dutch state itself had paid 1.3 million guilders of public money for one of his fakes. The National Museum had bought a painting they called a national treasure. It was baked plastic on an old canvas. If the trial went too deep, Everyone looked foolish. The experts, the museums, the government. So they kept it simple. Forgery, fraud, 1 year, case closed. And here's what the trial never asked. What the newspapers chose not to print. What an entire nation decided not to see. In 1928, 12 years before the Nazis even set foot in Holland, Han van Meegeren was already writing their ideology. He founded a magazine. He called modern art Bolshevism. He used language almost identical to passages in Mein Kampf. He used anti-Semitic imagery. He invoked a Jew with a pushcart as shorthand for everything wrong with the world. When German tanks rolled into Amsterdam in 1940, Han didn't need to adapt his worldview. He had been waiting for this moment. In 1942, he published a book of drawings. Black cover, gold Gothic letters, a red circle, the colors of the Nazi Party, deliberately chosen. He later admitted the symbol on the cover was designed to resemble a runic emblem used by the Dutch Nazi Party. One copy ended up in Hitler's personal library, with his handwriting on the first page. To my beloved Führer, in gratitude, a graphologist confirmed he wrote it in 1946. The report was filed away, not published until 1979, 30 years after his death. Long after the myth had solidified, someone had access to all of this evidence, the donations, the commissions, the dedication. Someone made a choice, and that choice is why you've never heard this part of the story. Because they didn't just bury a Nazi sympathizer, they manufactured a legend. This is the image Holland kept, the hero in the blue suit, the man who fooled Göring, the Dragon Slayer. The sketchbook is still classified. When historians requested access in 2009, denied. The official reason? Living persons might be embarrassed. Everyone directly involved is now dead. The secret died with them. And Han, the man who spent his whole life being erased, became permanent. He didn't just paint what people needed to see. He became who they needed him to be. So here's the only question that matters. Did he hate the Nazis, or did he just hate losing? Tell me, because I genuinely don't know. If this story made you think, subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and they're all waiting.